Hello. I was just checking to make sure my mic is on. Hello, eBay sellers. Come on in. I'm Kathy, and I love to be selling. Come on in, come on in. We're going to talk about spotting trends, how to spot trends and what is selling and what is hot on eBay. And it's something you can do using eBay, which is what's great. So there's a lot of great tools out there, a lot of great apps, a lot of great information. But especially when time gets, there's the time crunch, which happens for everybody because there are only so many hours in the day. It's how can I know within whatever categories that I'm selling in, how can I know like what's selling, what products are selling, what brands are selling? And it can be really helpful, particularly if you have a bunch of unlisted inventory, is to know, what should I be listing now? What should I be putting up? Like what is going to put cash in my pocket? Because that's always what you're interested in, right? What is going to sell? What's going to bring me shoppers? What's going to bring me buyers and get cash in my pocket? And the tips that I'm going to share are good if you're new to eBay. And if you are, welcome, welcome, welcome. Also, if you're more experienced, because sometimes we forget about things just because we're so focused, on listing and shipping and our social media, that you might overlook this. So this is what I want to share with you. So, and I'm doing it on desktop. You could certainly look on the app, but the desktop is going to have a little bit more of what I'm going to dig in with you. So come on in. And when you watch on replay, just put hashtag replay so I know you're around, because I like to hear from everybody. But this is what I want to share with you if you're not aware of it. So when you're logged into eBay, and let me just share my screen with you. Hang on, let's make it bigger. Hey, Sharon, how are you? When you're logged into eBay, up at the top, hang on a second, let me just take a look at my eBay. You can look, so up at the top, you're going to see eBay, and there's a bunch of categories. And what I've done is I've sorted by clothing, shoes, and accessories. Okay, so there's a bunch of categories. You can sort however you want. I picked clothing, shoes, and accessories because a lot of people sell clothing. Okay, you can sort by men's clothing. You can sort by women's clothing. You can sort by kids' clothing. And what I did was I sorted by women's clothing. And this is women's modern clothing. So this is the kind of thing, if I'm walking into a department store or if I'm shopping on various sites, this is the kind of thing that I'm going to see. I am going to give you some vintage clothing tips, so my vintage sellers don't despair. But I wanted to start with modern clothing. And for my new sellers, things you might have in your closet. So things I might have in my closet, things that, I bought and I just didn't get around to wearing. Or I gained a little bit of weight, or I lost a little bit of weight, so it's no longer a great item for me, and I want to sell it on eBay. So search the category on eBay, and this is not using Terrill, which is a great tool, and we're not checking solds yet. We're just acting like we're a shopper, and I encourage you to do that, because as sellers, sometimes we forget the buyer experience, this is what it's called, of what my buyers are going through. So if you go to women's clothing, and then you sort, and what I did was, so I did women's clothing, and then you're going to see all in women, women's accessories, women's bags and handbags, women's clothing, women's shoes. And then eBay's reminding me men's, kids, and baby. Okay. So what we're going to look at is women's clothing. So I'm going to click that. And again, I'm looking for tips to find great trends, what's selling, what to list, what to sort. And I'm going to pull up my screen again because I switched it by sorting for women's clothing. So now I'm sorting by women's clothing. Okay. And the reason I'm doing this is, again, we all have different styles and looks that we tend to gravitate towards. It's either things that we like or our friends wear. And you sort of forget how big the category is and all the things that are available, and also all the things that sell. And that's what I'm interested in, because it's a matter of listing not just things that I might think of, but again, I'm trying to think like a buyer. What are buyers interested in? And eBay is telling you if it is a category or a subcategory on eBay, what that means is people are looking for this, because eBay's not going to go to the trouble of creating these categories, showing this information, unless people are actively searching it. Okay. So this is what we're going to look at now is active wear, coats, jackets, and vests, dresses, hosiery, intimates, jeans, jumpsuits and rompers, leggings, outfits and sets, pants, shorts, skirts, suits and suit separates, sweaters, swimwear, tops. So a lot of categories. And again, if there's certain categories that you typically source regularly, and you forget about those other categories, it can be great just to screenshot it with your phone so that you've got it. Because the whole idea is fast, easy ways to help me with my sourcing and my listing. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on dresses, and we're going to take a look at that. So here we are. And when you click on dresses, they're showing you a bunch of brands. It's coming across the top. And that's what you want to be looking at, because it may not be brands that you're aware of. So immediately Free People comes up. Anthropologie. And Anthropologie has a lot of brands that are Anthropologie brands. So if you're somewhere where your thrift stores, your consignment stores, the places that you shop carry a lot of Anthropologie brands, it's worthwhile to go on their website and look at all the brands and various styles that they sell so you can keep an eye out and then check if they sell. Okay, eBay's also showing me BCBG, Zara, and it's going right across. We've got Kate Spade, Banana Republic, Calvin Klein, okay? Then when you scroll down, it's showing you what is important to shoppers and what shoppers are interested in when they're shopping for dresses. The size, which is obvious, right? Dress length. And you can sort, like, what's really popular. Are there more listings on eBay for minis? Are there more listings on eBay for maxis? It's worthwhile to go and look, because then again, when I'm going and looking at dresses, and I'm also going to sort by skirts so I can do that, I'm going to look at, like, if there's a gazillion listings for maxis, one, in all likelihood, maxis are very popular, but it also means that I have a lot of competition in maxis. And this is why it's good to look at this. There might be less minis or middies, but they have a good sell-through rate, which means they sell well. So always, take a look at the skirt length, take a look at the style, take a look at the brands. And remember, you can screenshot it. It helps to remind you what to list. It's also going to help to remind you what to source when you're outsourcing, what brands are popular, what styles, what length of skirt. Now, because I can hear people saying, but Kathy, I'm a vintage seller. What I love to sell is vintage clothing. And vintage clothing is super popular, sells really well on eBay, and can be a lot of fun to source. So this is how to use eBay to help you in sourcing vintage clothing. So you're going to go back to women's clothing and back to clothing, shoes, and accessories. So I'm going to take you over there. So hang on a second. And what you're going to do is you're going to sort by specialty. So let me show you how to do this. So here we are back. Hey, how are you? Make it back over here. So we're back to clothing, shoes, and accessories. And what you're interested in is, so we're at women. And what you're interested in is this category: specialty clothing, shoes, and accessories. And you're going to click it. And when you do that, what you see is clothing and shoe care products, clothing, shoes, and accessories, costume reenactment, and theater apparel. And just a quick sidebar on that. It's a fun one. And because it's August, I'm going to date this video. It's August of 2022. This category, if you look at theatrical reenactment, and you can go and look at them, can be really good for Halloween costumes. So take a look at that, and also for your sourcing. So when you see very flamboyant, very interesting outfits, just remember, theater reenactment is a category on eBay. And don't forget, people like to dress in all kinds of ways for Halloween. So that's a fun category to take a look at. Dance wear, mixed clothing lots, sports fan and souvenirs, uniforms, and work clothing. I want to quickly highlight that because here in New York City, we have a lot of hospitals. So often when I'm thrifting, I'll see some great uniforms. So take a look at that. Again, if they're branded with a hospital, not a great idea to be purchasing, but oftentimes they're not. And there's some brands that are super, super popular on eBay. So if you've got a good source for uniforms, definitely keep an eye out. They do sell. And again, here in New York is something that I do see regularly, and there's cute prints, it's a fun category. So depending on where you live, depending on where you're sourced, do keep an eye out for uniforms. Okay. This is it. Vintage clothing, shoes, and accessories. Now click this. Okay. And now we're on the page. You scroll down. Now, again, we've got vintage accessories, super fun category. Children's vintage. Don't forget, people love to dress their kids in cool vintage clothing. Men's vintage. It's not just for ladies. Men's vintage shoes, and then women's vintage clothing is just what I'm going to go look at. And again, depending on where you're sourcing, depending on what you have, you might have a great source for men's vintage clothing, for kids vintage clothing. If you source using estate sales, oftentimes you'll look at it and you'll see, oh, wow, they got a bunch of great kids vintage clothing or men's. Come on eBay, check your categories, check your styles, check your prices, because you might think you're getting a great price, but if it's something that really doesn't sell, like you go and you look at it and there's like 500 of them up on eBay of that similar style, and you check your solds and you use your Terrill and you find out, you know what, this just doesn't sell. It will save you a lot of money. So you take a look at the vintage clothing, and this is what's super fun. Look at this. So within vintage, you've got coats, jackets, and vests, dresses, jeans, jumpsuits and play suits, lingerie, pants, shorts, skirts, sleepwear and robes, all kinds of wonderful vintage nightgowns and robes, socks, suit sets and suit separates, sweaters, sweats, and track suits. And I'm noticing for fashion coming up this year that the track suits and sweatsuits, as if they've never really gone out of style, are super back in. So definitely keep an eye out for that, and keep an eye out for wonderful ones if you're outsourcing vintage. And the other thing I was noticing is the Letterman jackets are really back in again this year. And so it can be a fun one to source from your vintage. But go down all the categories so that you're aware of it, so that's like it's in your mind. Oh, yeah, vests, right? Yes, socks. Yes, vintage hosiery. Sells because one is for, don't forget, for performances, for theater, for TV, for film. There's times when they want authentic hosiery, authentic sleepwear. They don't want to create their own because, for instance, like with Broadway, if you're unaware of the fact I have a performing arts background, oftentimes they will create from scratch. So they will create the pattern, they will do it, they will cut it, they will do it. Same thing for film. But there's times when they don't want to do that, or they do it, but they also want to mix it with authentic vintage. So authentic vintage leather jacket, authentic tracksuit, authentic hosiery. So just realize that and keep an eye out, because all kinds of things in the vintage category are big sellers. And again, either from your own personal collection or an estate sale that you're going to. Estate sales are great for this, or an online auction, because there's a lot of online auction houses. Or again, a thrift store where, you walk in, this happens to me, you walk in and clearly somebody has donated like their collection. Like they've donated their collection of, let's say, like vintage lace tops, because you go to the rack and there's like 8 or 9 of them. Quickly, you jump on eBay because there's a great vintage category. You sort by blouses, tops. You go and look at it, because just because it looks great, it's lovely. It's always, is there a lot of competition? What's the price point? Do your best to size it. That's why it's good to take a tape measure with you. And then you're going to be checking the solds and using Terrill. Okay. But with the app, it's really easy to check the solds and just see, okay, there's a bunch that are like this, but do they sell? Are people shopping for them? But particularly with vintage, don't forget that a lot of times for Halloween, people they want to dress as the Edwardian lady, the Victorian gentleman. And so they'll pick up that lovely shirt, the lovely tie, the lovely hat. So vintage is a super, super category now, late August, going into the fall, because not only for people's personal wardrobe, they love that little vintage top, but also for Halloween. But eBay's got this, and it's a matter of drilling down. It's a matter of going onto eBay and searching the categories where you have good inventory or good access to inventory: men's clothing, women's clothing, kids' clothing, toys. But drill down, go into those filters. What are the subsets? What are the styles? And then go and look at the prices. Like for women's dresses and skirts, what are the lengths? Are there tons of maxis, tons of minis? What is popular? And then does it sell? Because there could be a ton of listings up. I was doing this with a private client, ton of listings up in the category. So you think, yay, I'm going to rock it. It does not sell. It's like all these people have this thing up and it is not selling. And that's when it's handy to hop over to Terrill, because it could be a seasonal item. So it's not selling now. It's like, nobody wants this. But wow, sure enough, all of a sudden in February, it goes flying out the door. So use eBay's categories. They're useful for modern. They're useful for vintage. Look at the styles. Look at your competition, because it'll show you there's 5,000 listed in this category. There's 2,000 listed in this category. Drill down and then go and look at the listings. And you can do this very rapidly. The more experience you get at this, you can knock this out super, super fast. I mean, you can be standing, in the thrift shop and sourcing and looking. Now, for estate sales, typically, you get some kind of pictures and some kind of inventory list, so you can do more research in advance. And same thing for the auctions. And depending on where you are in the United States and the world, right now, we are in the middle of back to school. Now, I realize some parts of the country, like the south of the United States, they're already back in school. However, places like New York, we don't go back into school until after Labor Day. So back to school is still very, very busy. And a quick reminder that while folks are shopping for their kids of all ages, and don't forget teachers shop for themselves, they also shop for themselves. So I might be buying something for my toddler or my junior high student. And while I'm there, I'm going to pick up a little something for me. So just because you don't have back to school, don't think that back to school shoppers don't come shop with you, because they do. Or maybe you only have one or two things that you think are back to school items. Get them listed, because that one backpack, that one computer accessory, that one cell phone case will bring you traffic to your other items. I worked retail for over 25 years here in New York. I still have great friends in retail that I go visit. And so what I've done is I've created a back to school product list for you. It's free. Just hop over to my website, ilovetobeselling.com, and you'll see it. Oop, let me get the Premiere out of the way. There we go. Bye-bye, Premiere. Ultimate Guide to Back to School Products. This is completely free. It's got oodles of ideas and things to sell for back to school, things that you might completely overlook, because back to school is a multi-million-dollar retail event. They're called retail events. There's a huge range of products. It is not just backpacks, okay? It's not just computer accessories, all kinds of clothing items. And don't forget, for college, it's dorm supplies and dorm items, also first apartment items. And the other thing I want to remind you, again, because, for instance, in the South, they're back at school. Once kids are back at school, whether it's high school, junior high, college, typically, particularly for your high school and your college, typically have some kind of disposable income. So they've got some kind of clothing allowance or selling allowance or buying allowance from their parents, or they've picked up a job. Okay, so like, for instance, with college, they've picked up a waitressing job. They've picked up some kind of job where they're helping with the expenses or paying for college. And they've got disposable income. So once they're back at school, okay, mom and dad help them get settled in their dorm room, in their first apartment, but now they're shopping for themselves. So grab my Ultimate Guide to Back to School Products. So now they're buying the leggings. Now they're buying those sneakers. Now they're buying that cool varsity jacket. So back to school drives sales for a huge range of items. They're buying that cool vintage hat, those great earrings. You know what? Mom and dad gave them that set of sheets. They're cool, but they want something else. They want floral sheets. They don't want striped sheets. So again, the dorm supplies, the sheets, the towels, all kinds of toiletries, clothing accessories. You know what? I'm back at school and I just need a little something to like pep myself up. They get the cool bracelets, the cool things that they snap on their knapsack. All kinds of things sell. So jump on my website, ilovetobeselling.com, and grab the ultimate guide to back to school products. It's my gift to you. And again, as you see items, when you go into thrift stores, I always challenge myself to look at one category I don't normally look at. So let's say I always do women's clothing, I go and look at kids' clothing, or I always do kids' clothing, I go and look at toys. Do it. And then jump on eBay and search. What categories are they putting up? If it's a category up on eBay or a subcategory, that means there's traffic for that. And it may not be something that I think of at all. Like I really don't look at vests. Yeah, but it's a category on eBay. And it turns out there's a ton of listings for vests. I'm going to go check out vests. Like I always go to women's dresses. I'm going to check out women's vests too. Okay. So that's where the eBay categories and listings, and be sure to check the solds because we want to be sourcing things that sell. Or again, I'm working through my unlisted inventory. It just sparks, it gets my brain going about what to get sourcing, listing, and selling now, because that's what it's all about, getting the traffic to your items and getting those things sold. So enjoy my free guide for you, the ultimate guide to back to school products. And I'm Kathy, and I love to be selling. Bye-bye, everybody.